Okay, so hi everyone. Um, so the piece that I submitted for workshop, it's a grief piece, and I wrote it after my grandfather passed away just a few months ago, and I wanted it to capture how a person or how different people, I guess, get influenced by different cultures and how that affects how they grieve and handle the idea of death. But at the same time, I also wanted to involve like a time factor, especially when you're anticipating death or when you realize that death will come for you and your loved ones. So that said, my first question is for you, what does each section explore about grief or death? And what does each section also explore about each person's life?
Okay, I guess I can go first for this.
Go ahead.
Um, this piece actually broke me, and I feel kind of uncomfortable critiquing it because it comes from such a personal place. But here we go. So this feels to me like the three uh, parts feel like past, present, future in my head. So the first part has the most understanding of the divide between the Chinese side and the Filipino side, I think. And in that matter, it connects the two cultures. The first part the first paragraph is what connects the two cultures together. And like I suppose because they have such a similar experience with it, like sorry if I'm being too uh like sorry if I'm comparing this too much into what it actually means, but it feels like this is like a brother or like a friend of your grandpa that uh, have a very similar experience with their multicultural experiences, right? And the grief elements feel structured like past, present, future to me because the first one concerns, I'm assuming, your grandpa, someone who your grandpa grew up with or he interacted with in his boyhood. And the second paragraph is someone your grandpa was with the majority of his life. And then the last paragraph is the speaker or the persona who is balancing the sort of untranslated legacy of their grandpa with the anticipation of death one day, right? So it's like past, future, past, present, future sort of structure. And then the second and third part for me is the most connected because they share the feminine experience of it all. Not to bring that into this, but it feels like that the weight is that weight women have to carry with them as married people. So if the first part elaborated on the divide between the Chinese and Filipino culture, this one stands in the middle, like smack in the middle of it. And the grief feels heavier on this one, and the depiction of it packs a bit more of a punch because it feels like a limbo between acceptance and mourning, that sort of thing. So that's second, and then the third part to me is the most distant from the grandpa because it's literally talking about how the speaker is distant from the grandfather, but it's the one that really had me misty-eyed in the end because I think it's a perfect paragraph really about how grief manifests and everything because you see what you grieve and everything. And it's the most relatable part in my opinion. It elaborates grief in a more practical sense, if I can say that. So yeah, those are the three parts for me.
Thanks, Theo. I'm glad that you got like each part communicated something different to you and offered like a different maybe facet of grief. And I guess with the last part, I'm surprised to hear that you resonated with it more, because I guess maybe it's something grandchildren go through. Like, I just learned this term called disenfranchised grief, and it's pretty much what we go through, like when a pet dies, or anytime we feel like maybe we shouldn't be grieving because we're, society thinks it's not really so important to us, or it shouldn't matter to
It's
us.
not for us to grieve. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess I was so surprised that there's actually a term for, I guess, the doubt that I had. And yeah, I guess it's I guess in a way like just good to know that you also you know got that from the third
Yeah.
stanza or third section. So thank you.
Yay! I'm glad. Stuff.
Yay. How about the others?
Hello. I can go next. So for the sections, the first section for me introduces the grandfather's death and how the grief from that manifests in like a cultural level kind of understanding, and that grief is kind of characterized by losing or having lost communication, or like not really communication in like a basic sense, but more of communication in a way that um how do I explain this? Communication in the way that um because I wanted to highlight the part where the section talks about the three iterations of your name. And if I remember correctly, the first iteration of one's name is the Chinese characters, the second one is pinyin, and the third one is the romanized version. And I guess like what I got from this is that since everyone own it, since the piece talks about how everyone most likely doesn't know the first two ones, it most likely sheds a light into the fact that there's a kind of communication barrier going on. And the section of the grandfather is really preoccupied in this, like it's really preoccupied in the eventual blending of cultures, which which I kind of saw as like a loss of in terms of like understanding cultural identity, but because I don't have a first-hand experience in this, I wouldn't really know. Um, and also, the first section informs me about your grandfather because despite his or the segment's preoccupation with multicultural experience, like he himself doesn't share to the younger generations. Like he hasn't passed on like his learnings, and like it's echoed throughout the other sections. The second section for me explores the grief from losing your partner, from losing someone that you held on to for a long, long time, and it explores the idea or the fact even that no matter how hard you prepare for that loss, it doesn't diminish the pain when it actually comes. Like it just makes it as like it just makes it expected, and like this section kind of makes it prophetic. Is that the word, prophetic? In
Yeah.
the case of like your grandmother looking at your situation and thinking this will happen to you someday, just not today, maybe some far off day. And like it really I agree with what Theo said, that it's sort of like your last section, like your last line, even like it really everything wraps like well together, because the third section really explores the grief and not knowing, or like not knowing how it's going to turn out, but knowing that it will turn out. And yeah, like grief and looking ahead and knowing that it's not all smiles. So yeah, that's what I thought the sections meant.
Thanks, Charlize. And I'm glad that you picked up on, like, I'm glad that even at the start you picked up on like the cultural divisions, I guess, or like I guess just cultural differences, just by the name. Because I think it's jarring, or like our names really carry so much. And I don't know if a lot of people realize it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's just really shocking to, know what your grandfather's name is for the first time, and to see it, written in in a foreign language, and you don't even know how to read it. I had to I had to like whip out the a dictionary to even know how to read it. So yeah, I'm glad that you caught on that, and also that, you know just the waiting, I guess, of grief to happen, or of death to happen. That, I guess, foreboding, if that's the word. Um, so yeah, thank you, Charlize. Does anyone else want to share, or maybe have a different thing to say? Um, or should I go to my next question?
I didn't say anything, or because I'm not sure if I want to be last basically. So like,
I I don't really have anything to say that the others can say. Yeah.
okay, so well, for me, the thing is like I actually went through this, right? So like I know everything you're talking about here for the most part. So I'm obviously coming from this point of view where like I know the backstory and all that shit. So um, I can say, like what I can say though is that um, it was super accurate to my own experience being like a observer, of what happened. Um, some things about well, your question is about the different parts. Um, well, I think in general, I want to say that the second person point of view, and it's like future, like predictive, like a future tense kind of thing. Like you will do this, you will do that, and like added to that is the you must do this kind of thing. Like the it fits super well, right? And I find it super interesting that the different narrators, the different narrators, because obviously it's different views, but it's also different narrators. Um, kind of sounds the same, but you can also acknowledge, or you can entertain the idea that these are different people, or at least different narrators. It's most clear in the first. It's most clear again in the first paragraph. I think, like you mentioned, how like someone he went through it at the he went through it at the same time. And then it just reminded me of like and so just really quick, just to finish that whole thought on the major thing. The second and the third paragraph, it's not very clear who the narrator is. It's not as clear, okay? And I don't think it's a bad thing at all. In fact, it's almost like the narrators are the just the same sort of like imagine the same thoughts or the same imagination. To me, it's actually the same narrator, but imagining it as though as though they're trying to imagine the person that they're talking to having these thoughts to themselves in a way. Um, anyway, back on how the narrator in the first paragraph is someone that went through struggle with with the grandfather, probably his brother, because they have like the same ma, right? So but then different grandkids. He refers to them as your own grandkids. So um, there is this other thing that you wanted to say, which is this comes in the question. This comes in your question, which is how like did the found family part come out? And I think well, it's very very subtle, and I think I think it needs a little bit more nudge in terms of like the found family part, because there are people here that are implied to be the found family, like the I assume it's Paul Young, Lucy, right, Reverend Lazarus. Um, some of these people we don't know exactly what their relationship is, and there's some, and you know about the backstory, and that backstory is nowhere in it. Perhaps it could be a little bit more a little bit more nudge than that. But that kind of stuff does come out, especially, and it's really cool how it does come out, especially like, for example, with how in the third paragraph, I should say the third section, something like how, you're surprised by how the other people who spoke, who had eulogies besides you, right? The other people who had eulogies also were able to like reflect deeply on like their relationship with their own, with with this person who passed away. Uh, maybe there's something. Maybe there's something there. Maybe they do realize it. It's. I know that was one of your goals, and because that's one of your questions, and you've said so much already, and it's like you don't really need to add that extra bit. And I'm really not sure how you could add it, that extra bit. But I think it's not super out. It's not super obvious, the pop family aspect. Something else I thought was interesting that happened in real life but didn't happen, or it's kind of implied but not super. So what happened in real life was the only people giving eulogies were females. Uh, no, there was not a single male that gave a eulogy, and it's interesting that other people mentioned how they like this whole like sort of female perspective, feminine perspective. Because if we're talking about culture, there is that cultural like question: why is it that in this man's funeral it was only women that um, spoke up about him? Uh, there is hints of that, right? Like there's hints of that, but the only hint you get is nobody else except the mom makes a eulogy, which is female. So yeah, adding that, like it's something. These are other things, other ideas that people are already picking up on. So these are like themes that are already present. So might as well maybe give some more hints on that that part, right?
Okay. With the eulogy thing, like, okay, that is true that in my grandfather's eulogy it was all females who spoke, but I didn't realize it until you mentioned it now. So um I'm not sure if I want to add that, just because I feel like I still need to keep this like clean, yeah, tight. So I don't know about adding that, but I guess fun fact for all of you. About the found family, that's really, I guess, one of the initial motivating things that I want to do, right? And I'm pretty sure that Theo knows this because we talked about it briefly at a writing party. And especially for, if you're an immigrant, I mean, this is how I imagined it. Like, if you're an immigrant and no, you don't know a lot of people speaking your language, obviously you would gravitate toward people who speak the same language, who like the same food, who have probably the same attitudes and philosophies in life. So, um, and yeah, I guess that was accurate, I would say, for my grandfather. And I wasn't sure how to write that here because I sadly do not know their names. And my access to that person who would know everyone's names, her name is Po Young. She deactivated her Facebook a few weeks ago. So it's like, oh man, I couldn't, like, just to add like the finishing touches, I couldn't do it because she doesn't have a Facebook. And, or like she deactivated it. So yeah, it sucks right now. But yeah, okay, so maybe for quick yes or no, like, would you guys like to see more of that found family in my grandfather's part, maybe?
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
Okay.
it would be interesting.
Okay.
I can.
because you
I,
in the description that you wanted to tell about the Fawn family, and I personally didn't really see that personally. So yeah, I want to see more.
I let me try to like. I think it's already kind of here. There's this line here how in the first paragraph, Poyong, who will stand by Lucy during the funeral arrangements, will want to stream the memorial service for your students and churchmates. So, like I said earlier, sort of like you introduce these other characters, Poyong, Lucy, Reverend Lazarus, Christine, and it's not very clear. Are these family or are these his friends? I know that I know that they're his friends, and so perhaps you could introduce the idea, or like it's like like I forget the term word. It's like as a spy, you're like kind of introducing these ideas. Anyway, I found it interesting that the friends were actually probably, if not as involved in the funeral, probably I would say even more involved in the funeral than actual family members, which I found interesting. And like I think having that sort of like there is something different here, or quote unquote wrong, in the fact that actually it's the friends who are more hands on with the funeral. And it's kind of there, but I don't I think by being more obvious about how strange that is would lead people to ask those questions like, okay, who exactly are these people, and why are they even more like involved in this funeral than his family? And that's because they are family. It's his found family, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I guess what's also hard when I was writing his section is I also did not want to overwrite it, especially since we have like an omniscient narrator, whoever he is, talking to him. And you know how, like, for example, like if they know each other, right? Like if I know you're a literature professor, I don't need to tell you it's your literature students. I just need to tell you your students, right? Because if I tell you it's your literature students, then it's kind of like, yeah, duh, because that's the only thing I teach. So I I wanted to like I wasn't, or more like I really did my best to not overwrite it because I feared that it wouldn't make sense anymore if there are too much details, like I'm dumbing down, or the narrator is dumbing down my grandfather as he prophesizes or whatever. um but yeah, that's a
Yeah, I think you just have to focus on the bizarre like situation where it's the friends who are more involved than the family in the funeral rites. So I don't think that's something that your grandfather would inherently expect or know, and it's something he could be told, right?
okay.
That's surprising because anybody would be surprised, and not it's not even in a bad way. Like if this was his second family, it would be just off the cuff, right? It would be like, and you'll be surprised that your friends are more involved than your family, right? Something like
Yeah.
that, right? Because it's like the first paragraph has this vibe where it's like, you're being told about your death before it happens. It's like how like there's that like trope or whatever where that story where you see your funeral happen like before you die, to see, what I mean. There's that story like whatever. It has that vibe to it. So I would expect surprises to be totally within the realm of being narrated, what your funeral's gonna be like.
Yeah, I guess that means more I don't know, asking my mom, I guess, in a very sneaky way so that she doesn't also, I guess randomly break down just for my essay. Um okay. Well, I guess a lot of you also answered my second question. I mean the one that I posted on the website, like how the sections inform each other. So I'll just throw a wild card right now, to ask maybe what your experience was, reading it in the second person and also in the future tense. And maybe also like thoughts on the title for now, like while we're at it. Because because okay, they're related. So I just want to know like what that process was like.
For the experience with the future tense and the second point of view, I um the second point of view made me actually like feel it more. Like I felt like it was really unraveling in front of my eyes, and like like it made me connect to the narrator more. It made me connect to the characters more. It made me feel more empathetic towards all of the characters. And for the future tense, I guess, hmm, like when I was reading it, and because it was in the future tense, I actually didn't I wasn't I didn't focus too much on the fact that it was future tense. Although it only like it only made me feel that I was like it only I only realized that it was future tense at the ending of the second section, which is the but today you must toast to her marriage to remember a time. Oh wait, no, wait, yeah,
Yeah.
Stephanie
Yeah,
will
that's the one.
enjoy this too one day. Like that's when I started to realize that, I'm reading in future tense. This piece is preoccupied with both the present and the future. And like Theo, I also I was also emotional during this part, and honestly throughout the whole piece because of it, um because of the mixture of like the present tense and also the second point of view. For the title, I like the title. I think it was expect. Oh wait, no. I think it was. Actually, wait. Let me gather my thoughts for that one first.
Okay, sure, sure. Sorry, it was a wild card. How about the others? Well, I'm glad that it didn't like stick out like a sore thumb. I think that's the saying for the future tense. Anyway, yes, Theo.
Yeah. The second person point of view to me actually read more like a letter, more so than it is like saying me, I am the person. So yeah, that was more of my reading into it. And for the future tense, like Charlize, I actually also didn't realize, like, oh wait a second, yeah, it is in future tense until just moments ago. So I didn't. I guess I wasn't paying that much attention. And yes, for the title, I'm also trying to gather my thoughts. To be honest, I think there would be a more appropriate title for this one. I'm not sure this is the one, but I can't put my finger on why. So yeah, I'll think about that.
Okay. Man, I should have posted that question, but I really just thought of that question like before we started workshop. So I guess it's okay if there's no answer about the title yet, and also took me a long time to come up with a title. But I guess to if I could say quickly with the title, um I don't know if how much of this is like a Chinese Filipino culture, But it's definitely in my family where they feel like if you show affection, if you are randomly sweet and thoughtful um, to someone, it's kind of like a like a warning sign or some sort of sign that that person is gonna die soon. And that's why with my family, they don't like random acts of love and affection, especially like grander gestures. Um, especially if it hasn't been done before. Precisely because it seems like it's an active goodbye. And I think with my title, I kind of wanted to sort of hint at that. Like after um, getting your kind of like reading from, or like your, whatever it is, your prophecy from this omniscient figure, you gotta be still. Don't despair. Don't suddenly shower people with love. Just chill out. So that's what I was going for with my title. I'm sorry if I spoiled the thought process, but maybe you guys can tell me if there's a well. I don't really think it's super essential to the essay. Like, excuse me, given how all of you have read the essay, but I just sort of wanted to have that, like for me at least, a super personal touch because that's just, I guess, I don't know if this is the culture or the family at this point, but if you think that sounds messed up, I guess it's a, I will admit this does kind of sound messed up because I could have showed affection to my grandfather before he passed away, but I didn't. I don't want to say if I regret that because I don't know. I don't want to just randomly cry right now. So yes, that is the logic behind the title. But yeah, I guess you guys can tell me your thoughts on that later. Um, unless you guys want to react now, if you have a reaction.
I actually thought of something, um, but I'll try to connect it with what you said right now. But my initial thought after looking at the title again is that the tone of the title contrasts with the tone of the piece because like throughout the piece the narrator has this tone of acceptance which ties in together with like the future tense because like having it in future tense plus having the narrator be composed gives a semblance of like acceptance, like the narrator has already accepted it, the characters like they're struggling but they're like the way the narrator paints them, it feels like they've already accepted it. But the title contrasts this because the title, like, Be Still for Dear Life. The title seems like it's begging the reader, it's begging the characters. It seems like it's giving the readers an order, like be still for dear life or something like that. So now that I think about it, like this contrast, I didn't notice it at first, but now I really appreciate it. Based on what you said, like you made the title and like the motivation behind the title is to like sort of say that the people involved or like the reader like just chill about the situation instead of like trying to process it in a way that is more is more denial, is more anger, um like compared to acceptance. Like I think that your motivation like it really makes sense. I mean, of course it makes sense, but like I feel like it really I think like in my mind at least that the contrast of like the tone and the fact that you made the title for things to actually be chill instead of like actually it becoming an order or like what's synonymous to order? I feel like because when I'm thinking of order and I
Imperative?
think of menu, are wait, I'm trying to order like an action that
Mhm.
you want others to do. Like instead of like I feel like our ideas are contrasting, which I'm not sure. Like I guess it's just my mind being weird right now. But yeah, like the contrast of the tone and the contrast of the title, I think is what I'm getting at. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry if my brain is
It's
so
okay.
it's mush. It's mush, guys.
It's okay. So
Right.
just a time check that I have like 9 minutes left. But can I just clarify, Charlize, do you like the contrast of the chill tone of the body versus the more like imperative, demanding tone of the title? Do you like the contrast or do you hate it?
I like the contrast. I feel
Okay.
like it says something like beyond what the narrator wants to say, because like you can still hide a story behind the title, and not and like a story behind the title that sits independently from the story. So if that's what you're going for, or if that's something that you want to explore, then maybe you can retain the title, or yeah, that depends on you. So yeah.
If I can like echo
Thank
what
you.
if I can echo what like Clarice, what Charlize said, because I have very similar sentiments, and maybe I could phrase it in my own way. Um, well, first of all, I think the piece itself, the body, the text, it's already complete, and I'm not sure how much the title could really add to the piece, because the piece is very solid as it is. Um, and if you're highlighting, if you use a title, and there are many themes that you're exploring here, and if you use the title to like explore a specific sort of theme, then maybe it will like taint the piece, because like it's putting unnecessary sort of like emphasis on, you know, whatever it is that you want to emphasize. um with that said, about what Charlize was saying with how like it's its own story in a way. Um, I actually kind of viewed the title as like a fourth stanza, because in on its own, it's like its own sort of, it has its own narrator, right? And that narrator is talking to yet another persona. Um, and what the nar- and it is very subversive, right? And contrasting in a way that, well, for the most part, the narrator in the different narrators in the different stanzas have, you know, a more empathic like message, or like, you know, or they're kind of understanding. Although you do there are narrators who do become imperative, and interesting enough, that's when you guys realized it was future tense, right? When she said you must do something. So actually, the narrators are capable of being imperative, and the narrator in the title is being imperative, and yet the way he's being imperative is so awesome, because it's like, hey, you must be chill, which is super subversive, and I feel like kind of describes the grandfather pretty much perfectly, right? Like this seemed like a really chill guy, and he seemed like he figured out life. You know, Tai Chi, friends. Basically, he didn't get sucked into the whole like Chinese tycoon. I gotta like flex all my money and be like, you know, get involved in associations and all that. No, this guy was like a chill guy, and maybe that's the message everybody sort of needs to hear when people, you know, at least that's what the grandfather would say. So in my mind, the narrator in the title is the grandfather himself. Boom.
That's a very interesting read. But thank you for that, Raphael. Okay, I have 5 minutes left. Um, well, Raphael has mentioned the narrators a few times. Um, I don't know if I want to go into the narrators, or to ask if the world or society or like the people, do they feel real in the essay, or do they feel like a stereotype of some sort? Like in my grandfather's part, does he feel like a real person? Does my grandma feel like a real person? Or I don't know. I'm not sure if they feel real and they feel like, did they inhabit uh a society? Is that how it feels like? Or does it feel like, oh, this is a stereotypical, like, I don't know, Asian family, whatever.
I actually didn't pick up on stereotypes at all. Maybe I'm just not familiar with the stereotypes, but I actually felt very much like they're real people, and these are stories that you're actually telling. Like I didn't see them as an imagined fantasy. It didn't feel like that at all. It feels like a prophecy come to life. So yes, they all fit very well. It feels like an anthology. So yeah.
Thanks, Theo. That's good to hear, because I guess I was worried about, like, for example, in my portrayal of my grandma, I didn't want to portray her as just, like the grieving wife. And I just wanted to sort of show that she has a life, or like a life of her own, and she can, have her own life even after um my grandfather's death. So yeah, I'm glad it didn't
Yeah,
seem stereotypical.
the second paragraph actually to me felt like the most alive because of the all the like stuff going on, like the moving and it just like the descriptions of the daily life just brought so much life into it.
Okay, that's really good to hear, because I really don't want to portray like a weak woman. Yeah. Okay.
What's funny is that should be actually probably the saddest paragraph because it's literally the widow, right?
Yeah.
Who's also sort of contemplating or like, thinking about her own death, I guess.
Man. Yeah.
Like to echo what Rafael and Theo said, like same feeling. It's really interesting how the second one like is like the most centered around life, because the first one is like kind of like it. I don't think death was mentioned explicitly. Like it was like the gravestone and stuff, but but there's still that pervading feeling, like you're kind of expecting it, I think. And then the last one is Stephanie's your like perspective, and that is centered mostly around the funeral, like I think. And whereas the grandmother's one, the second perspective, is about kind of like moving on and about grief. Like it's like more about grief and moving on than about the death itself. And I don't know, I found that really interesting.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Yes. Oh, also last thing, like I did not like also to echo Theo's thing, I'm not sure about the stereotypes like either, but also I don't think so. They feel like alive, and like I don't know, like just for me hanging around older people like recently, like I don't know, feels that way, like how like they would act, especially the second perspective, like the trying to move on from it, but not in a way that stuffs it in a box. Just, like trying to configure actively how to get over a tragedy or something sad.
Yeah, I think for me, it, it was important. Maybe it was a subconscious decision to make it, for my grandmother, it was about the moving on part. Um, because yeah, I don't want to, I mean, I guess we all know about the despair, right? Of losing someone you love. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem right to have the essay focus on, hey, you're gonna grieve when once your husband dies. It's like, yeah, no shit. So I think that for my grandmother, I think her learning how she is gonna move on was really important for me, in terms of like, showing that she has a life and she's not, like easy to despair, I guess. So, yeah, thank you, Clarice. Okay, my time is up. So, thank you everyone for your comments. So helpful. Yay.
Good job.
Thanks
Got it.
everyone.